spot. Now you heard me mentioning using a smaller tip. Now a smaller tip is more of a sharp tip. Doesn't have to be a metal sharp tip. I like to use the yellow sharp tips. I call them a root beer tips, and they look like this right here. You can get this from Ultra Dent Tools. I'm not sure if the other companies carry them. I think maybe perhaps Dent Gear carries them, but it's very effective for pinpointing those little micro lows that you got to pinpoint without creating micro highs. Now, if you're really good with metal tips and you feel more comfortable, use the metal tips. The benefit with metal tips, you don't need tape. They grab onto the metal, but you need to know exactly where you're pushing at all times. Now, what you will want to do with the plastic tabs is put some gaffer's tape on it. Gaffer's tape will prevent the tool tip from slipping. Once the plastic makes contact with the back of the metal panel, it is going to slide like crazy. And if you make a giant high spot, we call that a snail trail. And that's something you definitely want to prevent. I also prefer these wooden tips too. They're from Ultra Dent Tools. They're kind of a later, newer type of tip that came out last year. You can see how sharp it is as well. They don't seem to slip as much as the plastic, but I have slipped with them. So I would still put a little gaffer's tape on there. So whatever your choice you like to use between this one and the yellow one, I would get a bunch of different tips to find out what works for you, what you're comfortable with, what you prefer. So they also make a semi-sharp one, not quite as sharp as that, but kind of like a bullet tip almost one like. And I recommend using those for really pushing out the deep stuff without pocking it up. Don't get me wrong, you can still pock up with those this wooden tips or the plastic ones. You can still do it, but it's going to be a lot harder. Now, the thing with the metal ones, the benefit of the metal ones is that you don't slip. It grabs right onto the metal, and you'll have a good, more accuracy, pinpoint accuracy, but you're going to need a lot of experience to use those. Now, this dent's getting pretty close to done. All I'm doing now is repositioning, making sure I'm doing a few more checks back and forth. Sorry about this little camera shakiness on this part, but let me just hold it right here. There's still some pinches right in this area. I don't know if you noticed, and there's some little micro lows. So that's what I'm setting my reflection up to finish out that little bit. Now, towards the end of the repair, I could possibly sand this, but I didn't do it in this repair. customer wasn't going to see it, it's not going to be something that's going to make or break my repair. If I really don't like to sand, I'm not super comfortable with sanding, so I try to avoid sanding. If I can get the repair to match or close like the orange peel, there's no need for me to sand. Now, if you're a super crazy perfectionist and you're doing this for a contest, or you're trying to impress somebody or not detect a dent at all, then yeah, you probably want to sand. Now, what I like to use if you are going to sand, which is I just found out on the Hail Trail, is Toll Cut, which is a dry 3000 sandpaper you can just rub and use without using water. If you're not familiar with wet sanding, usually you have to use water so you don't burn through the clear coat too fast. But with this type of sandpaper, you'll be able to dry sand, and it will make your repairs a lot better, especially if you get a little chewy and you can't see what to push. It'll clear it up for you. I'm just going to add some little bit of background music. You guys can just watch what I'm doing in this part. If you want to skip over and fast forward it, by all means go ahead, but this is the little details that I'm working out in this repair using the sharper plastic tips as I mentioned. All right, I hope I didn't bore you too much right there, but as I mentioned, you could have fast forwarded. At least it gave you some insight of what I was doing. You can see I go to this R4 tip on the blending hammer, the jackhammer. It really helps me a lot. I can make a mistake without really paying for it. So if I make a little bit of a low, it's not hard to fix. I'm going just right above, tapping those crowns down. And then when I tap the crowns down, sometimes I have to correct it, so I have to make a little bit more pushes. But all in all, it's just a lot of patience, guys. You just have to really just, it's almost, when I'm doing a dent, I'm not thinking, okay, I gotta push here, I gotta push here. It's automatic, guys. It's really automatic. I might be thinking about, oh man, I gotta do my kid's birthday, or oh man, my wife's anniversary, or I'm gonna get in trouble tonight because I didn't take out the trash, stuff like that. But once you really get in, that's what I call, it's kind of like I'm definitely in it, but my mind's somewhere else because it really relaxes me. So now we got a different shot of it, but we're not done yet. We're still not done. What I'm going to end up doing is just still picking at it little by little, but I'm trying to get my camera set up so you can see the exact shot I want you to see. I'm moving my board down. You can see what a big difference those crowns was. Remember how high that crown was? Now it's almost undetectable except the little spots in there. Now I'm going to go in there. Technically I could leave it just like this. Customer would be super happy. They wouldn't see it. It's on a white car. I'm not saying that's the excuse you need to have, not at all. I'm just saying it's pretty dang good as it is now. There are some little spots that need to be touched up. I'm going to show you what I'm going to use next to touch up those spots. But before I do that, I'm using a rubber ball tip from Dent Gear. Now you can use it on a blending hammer. I happen to have, this is a special hammer that was made for me from these custom PDR tools, I believe.com. If I'm saying it wrong, I'll put it on here as well if you're interested in those hammers. Those hammers are very expensive though, but very well made. So the rubber ball tip actually spreads the metal in a bigger area for me without causing any massive little low spots or deep pit spots from the tap. Now I use a couple tools to help me finish, do these little picks from the top of the fender as I showed you. The first one I'm going to show you is the Dent Gear tool, and it's very common to the Ultra Dent tool. It's a double bend blade tip that's covered with gaffer's tape, like you see here. This one's really thin, and you can tell the difference. It's Dent Gears because of the chrome finish. I think it's a nickel plated finish. A really pretty tool, but it's Ultra has one too as well. I actually have both, and then I like to use the Ultra Pick. See how tiny that little tip is? I can pick out all this little stuff inside the orange peel of the paint. So any little flaw, that's what I'm going to pick out with. So I usually like to start with the blade tip, take all the bigness or the fatness of the dents out, and then pick it out with the small pick tip, what you just saw me show you. So I'm pretty much wrapped up now, guys. I'm going to play some more awesome background music, some cheesy, awesome background music. And if you just want to fast forward it, you can zoom back and forth between it. There are some little flaws here and there. As I mentioned, I didn't sand. The whole object of the game was to just get as much out as I could. There is a little bit of a little right there where I'm talking a little low and a little high spot. So I don't remember if I went in there and fixed it or not from this video. This wasn't really a planned video. No excuses though. I should go in there and fix it if I didn't. But anyhow, take a look at it. You always want to make sure when you finish though, make sure you're finishing with your lines straight up and down. Don't stand up on your dent and say that's good. Make sure you're eye level across the dent and you should be good. Here's the final shot. And everything looks pretty good. You can see a little bit of the blemish inside the orange peel right there. I'm getting really close in there. I could have probably done a little bit more work. I always critique myself. If you throw some lines on your reflection, I guarantee you, not saying it's better. I'm not trying to tell you that, but I'm gonna guarantee you're gonna see some flaws with lines, especially if you make them really thin. I pull the light back just to show you. Of course, this is a white car. White car, you're not going to see as much without a reflection, especially out in the sun. So anyhow, I hope you guys like this in-depth tutorial. I hope you got something out of it, and let me know if you enjoyed this. Let me and John know, and we'll be more than happy to do some more tutorials like this. But give some requests, sign up, and show us tell us what you need, and what you want to see. We are working on some cool tutorials.